friends, welcome back to Food Prep Guide. We're out in the garden today. I was just out here earlier and saw that my oregano is really just out of control. I also noticed that my thyme wasn't looking too hot. It's still growing fantastic, but it's past the point of its prime. I should have harvested about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I'm going to go ahead and harvest it now. It'll still be good. You notice, if you can see these little flowers, that's where the seeds are going to be forming. And since herbs are perennial, most herbs are perennial, which means they come back year after year, I want these seeds to drop where they are and give me even more oregano next year. Same thing for the thyme. So when I'm harvesting, I'm going to be leaving all of the stems that have already flowered and allow those seeds to drop in place and produce more plants next year. So I'm going to try to only harvest the ones that aren't budded out yet. I'm going to be doing oregano. I've got thyme back here and sage right here. So let's get cracking. When you're harvesting herbs, you just want to leave a few inches from the ground. Leave a few inches still there on the ground and that thing will grow right back, no problem. Oh, it smells so good. When I'm done harvesting, we're going to head inside and we're going to dehydrate these. Show you how to do that to maintain maximum fragrance and flavor. Now that I see how much oregano I have, kind of doubting whether or not I want to go ahead and harvest any of my other herbs. I mean, once I take these off the stems, it's not going to be a full dehydrator load by any means, but still, it's just, I feel like it's going to be hard to keep the herbs separate. Decisions. Let's go check out the sage. Okay, the sage will be easy enough to keep separate from the oregano. I think the thyme is just going to need to be harvested by itself. The reason I say that is because thyme is really tiny leaves. Let me pick you a little sprig, just in case you haven't seen a live thyme plant. It is tiny, and these things just fall off so easily. And if I mix this in with the oregano, I'm afraid it's going to get lost and be practically impossible to separate, to dehydrate. So I'm going to hold off on the thyme and go ahead and harvest the sage, because that'll be easy to separate out. Oh, here's a caterpillar. I'll go ahead and get rid of him. He's bad news for my tomatoes. He's bad news for practically anything in the garden. One thing to be mindful of when you're harvesting herbs is that they are a haven for spiders, which is strange. You know, we think strong smelling herbs is like a spider repellent or just a pest repellent in general. And maybe it's just in my garden, I don't know, I highly doubt it though. But there are just spiders all over in here. I don't mind them though. They are helping me keep the pest population down in my herb garden, which is wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Spider. Okay, I think that's good. I think that's all the trimming I'm going to do on the sage. Gonna let the thyme go, harvest that at a different time. Okay, here we have our sage and oregano harvest. let's head to the kitchen and get this processed up, ready to go in the dehydrator. We're back in the kitchen. We've got our herb harvest, and I've got my dehydrator trays. So for this oregano, because the leaf is kind of small, and for any other herbs that have kind of small leaves, you're going to want either parchment paper or some kind of dehydrator like silicone mat, because as they dry, they're going to shrink down, and a lot of times those holes are a little bit too big and they can fall through. So I'm going to be using my mat here, and to take the leaves off of this stem, we're just going to grasp the stem really good, take our fingers and slide down. Sometimes when I get towards the end of the stem it breaks, and I'll just have to pick it up again and pull it down. Take this one. I'm going to try and go against the grain, see if that works any better. Oh yeah, okay. Going against the grain works a whole lot better. Against the grain, I just mean the opposite side that the stem grows, or the opposite direction it grows in. I'm just going to hold it, go down, slide right off. Some of these stems have little flowers on them. I meant to leave most of those in the ground, and I think I did, but every now and then I've got a little flower bud. That's okay, perfectly edible. Sometimes they can even be stronger flavor and stronger fragrance than the leaves. So when dehydrating herbs, there are two things that make it different than your typical dehydrating. And number one is you don't have to worry about it touching. A lot of times with dehydrating, we want to provide as much airflow as possible, so we don't want the fruits and vegetables and stuff to be touching each other. But with herbs, you can pile them on the trays. It's the same thing with greens. You can see I've got it pretty heavily on here, and that's perfectly fine. The next thing to know is that they need to dehydrate at a very, very low temperature. The lowest setting your dehydrator will go. On my Excalibur, I have a setting called Living Foods that is 90 to 95 degrees, and that's what I dehydrate herbs at. At 90 to 95 degrees, they're typically done, that's degrees Fahrenheit by the way, they are typically done in about 6 to 7 hours. But I'm going to wait till I go to bed tonight and pop these in right before I go to bed. I'm just going to go ahead and let them go overnight. There's no such thing as too dry as long as you are dehydrating at that very low temperature. If you were to toss them in at something like 125 or 130, you would burn them. But at 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, you're not going to over dry them, and they're not going to burn. So doing it overnight is perfectly fine. I'm going to continue loading up these oregano trays, and then we'll do the sage. So we've got the oregano done. Let's move to the sage. I've realized that I forgot to mention a very important step, which I'll just demonstrate on the sage. So when I am dehydrating herbs, I don't wash them. What I do is I try to harvest them after a rainy day and just kind of let nature wash it off for me. And when we are harvesting the top half of the plants, they're not sitting in that dirt, and they're also not getting dirt splashed up on them. So they're pretty clean to begin with. But this is one thing I do to clean them. The reason why I don't wash them is the first time I harvested my own herbs, I did wash them. And when I dehydrated them, they did not turn out good at all. They just weren't as potent, and the texture just seemed a little different. I don't really know why that was, but the next time I did it, I didn't wash them, and they turned out so much better. So now I don't wash them, but I do this. So let me move this tray real quick. What I do is I put my herbs in a strainer bowl like this, and I just put it over the counter, and I just start shaping. And I don't know if you can see that on the camera. I'll show you close up in a minute, but there is just dirt falling off and coming through these holes. I'm just gonna take my hand and kind of swoosh it around, kind of reposition the herbs, and do some more shaking. And this is just getting any dust, any pieces of grass, any just debris that doesn't need to be there, kind of getting that off. And as I am putting them onto my trays, I'm also kind of visually inspecting for any leaves that are just really bug eaten or bruised and damaged or just really dirty. And I'll put those to the side. You may have seen me on doing the oregano. You may have seen me put a couple stems to the side and not use them, and that was why. That's because they had either some too much bug damage or they were just really dirty and I didn't want to use them. Okay, let's see if you can see this. Let's see all that dirt and hay and grass and all that. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And that's how I clean my herbs before, that's how I clean my herbs before dehydrating them without getting them wet. And also harvesting a day after a good rain. Let me clear all this out real quick. Now I'll just have to wash my counter down really well when I'm done. So with sage, because it is a bigger leaf, you don't have to use a tray. You can just use your regular dehydrator tray. Or excuse me, you don't have to use any kind of mat or parchment paper or anything like that. And for these, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break the leaf right off at the stem. And this is what I'm going to dehydrate. And I'm going to leave the stem parts. Breaking it off. Right there at the base where the leaf meets the stem. And then I'm going to toss this stem to the side. We have chickens. They're going to love these. So it still won't be wasted. And as I'm working, I'm just looking for any leaves that are just dirty or too bug damaged. And I will set those aside and not use them. Whew. Smelling strong in here. I love that though. Homegrown and home dried herbs just completely outshine what you can get at the grocery store. Most herbs are perennial, so you plant once and they just keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back. Especially if you leave those flower heads and don't harvest those. They'll drop and replant themselves for next year. And just like with the oregano, you don't have to worry about them touching. You can pile them on, no problem. Looks like I'm only going to have about one tray of these. And that's it. These are going to go in my dehydrator at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to put them in about 10 p.m. and when I wake up in the morning, they're going to be done. And we will bring you back and show you how I get those ready to be jarred up. I just took the herbs out of the dehydrator and it is 8 p.m., which means I let these run almost 24 hours. And this is an excellent example of the rule of dehydrating, which is just go until it's done. There's no set times, there's no really even recommended times. There are just too many factors in the environment around you, like your humidity at the time of dehydrating, that affects it to where there's not really, it's almost impossible to give a set time. So what I was looking for was just the signs that it was dry, and the sage is actually what was holding up the process, because it was, when I was pulling it out to check it, the sage was still extremely fuzzy, and I could bend it without it making any noise. And that tells me that there was too much moisture left in there. When the herbs are done, they should be kind of rough to the touch, and when you pick them up and try to break them, you should hear that crunch noise. So it took close to 24 hours for this load to be perfectly done. So when I am packaging up the oregano, I'm just using clean hands, and I'm just going to put them in my mason jar and then show you what I do to crush it up quickly and without a whole bunch of mess. So I usually do 2 handfuls, and then I use my tamp tool. This is regular mouth on one side and wide mouth on the other. And I will take it and just press down and twist. Press down and twist. And what that's going to do, and I'll even stir it, and that's just going to crush up that oregano for me without me having to crush it up by hand, really. Now it's nice and crushed up. So I'm just going to do the rest and load up this jar. I should be able to fit all 3 trays in this 1 quart jar. It still smells so strong. What I absolutely love about home dried herbs. They really maintain their fragrance. It's potluck at church tomorrow, so I got all kinds of treats over here. Okay, and then just use that tamp down tool. Press down and twist. And stir. The oregano too, just to show you, it passes the noise test. You also want to be able to crumble it really easily. If you can't crumble it easily, or when you crumble and you come off with residue on your hands, that's it's not done. But this is done. That crinkle sound is the sound of doneness when dehydrating herbs. Go, nice and crushed up and ready to be used. Just in case you don't know, you can absolutely reuse old canning lids for dehydrating. That's why I save my canning lids. This is black bean lid, and normally when I am dehydrating food, I'm going to be vacuum sealing it, but for herbs, this is going straight on my shelf to be used. And since I'm going to be opening that lid and taking in and out of it almost on a daily basis, weekly basis, there's no sense in really me vacuum sealing this. So I don't vacuum seal my herbs. That's just personal preference when I'm getting in and out of them. Now, if I had a really large harvest and was putting it up on my shelf, then I absolutely would go ahead and vacuum seal it. Now with the sage, we like crushed sage, and with that, I usually can't get it quite crushed up small enough with my tamp tool, so I usually go ahead and just crumble it in my fingers and rub it in my fingers back and forth. Let me try to show you what that gets. Actually, I'm going to do this over a bowl real quick. gonna crush it up in my hands, and then I'm gonna rub it between my fingers multiple times. And this is gonna give us crushed sage, just like you get at the grocery store, except much more potent and fragrant. Wow, whew, very strong. Okay, this is what we're going for with sage. Rolling it between our fingers several times gives us crushed sage. Do that with all the rest. Every now and then when I am doing this, I will rub those sage leaves right off the stems. Sometimes I missed a few stems when I was dehydrating them, but during the crushing and rubbing phase, you just rub them right off the stems, and then I can easily dispose of these. Now I'm just going to go through and pick out any stems that came off during that process. And into the jar it goes. Here we go, crushed sage. I have more sage coming soon, ready to harvest soon, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave it in this bigger jar, and I'll be able to add to it later. Put a reusable or an old canning lid as the lid, and I'm not going to bother vacuum sealing it. So, dehydrating herbs, super easy. Hope y'all give it a try. So much better than what you get at the store. See y'all next time. Bye.